You know, I've avoided talking about this topic for a long time because I just didn't know what to do with it. Two people separating, I mean, how much of it is true? And more importantly, how do I connect it to the bigger picture and not sound like I'm just repeating the drivel of gossip magazines? But then I remembered, this isn't just any old couple. This is a couple where one half, Meghan, uses and discards people as an actual hobby. Maybe even a full-time occupation. The only full-time occupation that she's ever held on to in the long term. Using and discarding people is clearly a pattern of behavior with her. And on this channel, we love dissecting problematic and disturbing patterns of behavior almost as much as some people love, Prince Harry, ignoring said patterns even when they're staring them right in the face. Over the past few months, Meghan's absence from the public eye, ever since the Netflix fiasco really, has been very much noted by the public. And normally, I'd say, and why is this news? But because of the woman we're dealing with, there is always much more brewing underneath the surface. And when you think about it, the reason for the noteworthiness of her absence is actually pretty fair, especially when you consider the fact that this couple were once described as codependent not that long ago. And we're dealing with a woman who very gladly inserted herself into every single occasion or event that Harry was affiliated with or heading. Whether it was the Invictus Games or something else, she always had to be right there on stage with him, sharing the limelight. So with this backdrop in mind, it does seem uncharacteristic for Meghan to disappear while her husband was very much in the limelight all by himself, for better or for worse. She wasn't there when he was promoting his book, for instance, and you could argue, okay, that's his book, but a third of that book was pretty much about Meghan, and no one's saying she had to be on stage with him getting interviewed, although you better bet your bottom dollar if the project or if the book was received well, that's exactly where she would have been. But fine, you can say she wanted to give him his moment. She's not the narcissist that everyone insists she is. Okay, fine. Where was she in his moments of need, such as his numerous court cases, which one of his cases against NGN has just been okayed for trial, minus the phone hacking allegations and the secret agreement allegations. But that means he's going to have to testify again. And if you'll remember from his last testimony, he choked up and said it was a lot. This is someone who apparently served in Afghanistan, but okay. Now, I personally don't make a habit of dabbling in rumors, especially rumors surrounding the separation of a celebrity couple. But in this instance, the saying, where there is smoke, there's fire, comes to mind. But then even if the rumors are right, so what? Mind your own business. And normally, I'd agree. But like I said in the start, this isn't just your regular old couple going through, hardship. Considering this is Meghan Markle, perhaps some old habits are at play. I'm sure you've heard of this saying before. Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. And that, to me, is precisely what gives this rumor credence. I made a video back in November last year called The Black Widow. And I made it before I got into the habit of scripting my videos, so it's not as well thought out as I would have liked it to be, but it still got the message across, which is that Meghan Markle is an unabashed user. In that specific video, I went through the primary men in her life whom she had used and discarded along the way to the top. But anyone who knows anything about Meghan would know that this use and discard pattern isn't just restricted to the men in her life. Whether family member, friend, lover, colleague, or business associate, she has a penchant for targeting people whom she thinks would be of use to her, luring them into her tangled web, and capturing them so that she could use them up and throw them out. We've got Jessica Mulroney, her former best friend, whom she dropped at the blink of an eye. We've got Gina Nelthorpe-Cowan, her former talent agent. Even organizations like World Vision and the UN weren't spared. So it's this disturbing proclivity of hers that is fueling these separation rumors, because people know it's exactly what she does. Now, I personally think that it's still too early to tell with certainty whether Prince Harry has arrived at the dreaded discard phase, because Prince Harry, despite his waning popularity, is still seen as a valuable commodity by both Meghan and businesses like Netflix. After all, Harry was the one with the memoir. I mean, I doubt Meghan didn't have enough material for a book. Harry is the one with the Heart of Invictus documentary, whether that's going to come out or not. Harry is the one who is going to Africa, presumably to film for Netflix. And Meghan isn't going. So because of his royal status, which greatly exceeds any Hollywood celebrity, a fact which Meghan has drastically failed to understand, his clout currency will probably never run out. Or it won't, at least until he's really old and the new generation has taken over. So what do we have here? The current Netflix projects aren't even about Meghan. The book deal, so far, nothing from Meghan. Even Spotify signed up a royal power couple. They didn't want some solo project headed by Meghan, for Meghan, and about Meghan, because that's just not interesting, as evidenced by the eventual cancellation of the deal. The fact of the matter is, nobody cared what Meghan had to say, especially about herself, before she was a global name. And aside from the brief interest in her while she was a vibrant ingenue fiancée and a blushing bride, it looks like she circled back right to where she started. So it's not like she's thriving all on her own right now. Quite the opposite, in fact. I don't see a pipeline of projects lined up for her. Instead, for months now, we just heard of various rumors, from the Tig revival to a Dior contract, none of which have come to fruition. I believe that the reason that Meghan has been laying low for so long now is because she's selfish. She only surfaces when she knows that things are going well for her, or when she knows that she's going to be the belle of the ball. But as soon as the going gets tough, or things just simply don't go according to plan, regardless of anyone else's needs, including her husband's, she disappears. Unless, of course, it's a candid, entirely natural pap stroll in the Montecito wilderness. And how convenient that we've been getting a lot of those lately. Now, despite everything I've just said, that doesn't mean that Prince Harry isn't vulnerable for discarding. I believe that, should it suit her, Meghan would drop him in a heartbeat. After all, she was textbook in her pursuit of him, which they blatantly showcased on the first episode of their
orchestrated reality show
for the entire world to see, which, by the way, serves to show you just how completely oblivious they are to the toxic nature of their courtship and eventually their relationship. Because what they've done is attempt to masquerade a classic narcissistic pursuit, typical love bombing tactics, as the fairy tale of the century, despite the fact that any adult with some minimal experience with relationships, healthy relationships, would know that their relationship, especially considering the speed with which it progressed, could only be described as a fairy tale because it was based on fiction, on lies, on deception, rather than on the truth and the trust and the familiarity and connection that two lovers naturally form with the passage of time. So if Prince Harry wasn't spared from the love bombing phase, and some would say he's currently and has been for a long time in the devaluation phase, then why would he be spared from the discard phase? And there is some logic to that. Heck, there's a lot of logic to that. The way I see it, Prince Harry is safe as long as Meghan doesn't find an upgrade, a different meal ticket, like some billionaire. And not to be ageist, I despise ageism, but we live in an ageist world. Somehow, I don't think that a woman of her age with 2 children and her reputation would necessarily find that easy to accomplish. Speaking of her children, some might say, oh, she doesn't need Prince Harry anymore. She's got the kids, they've got the titles, she's got it all in the bag. And if Meghan's sole interest in life was money, then I would agree with you. But this woman needs attention and accolades like we need food and oxygen. And interest in her children from the press, especially when they grow up and come into their own, won't necessarily translate to interest to her. Because remember what I said about the ageist society we live in. The young are seen as exciting and relevant, whereas the old, unfortunately, are not. So I suppose the question is, can Prince Harry cut himself loose before the, some would say, inevitable discard arrives? Well, if the rumors are to be believed, he's practically living alone out of hotel rooms at this point, and even if he isn't, he will be going off to Africa, presumably for a few months. It takes time to film things, where he would have time to think, where he would have, you would hope, some clarity of mind if he stays off the drugs, and really think things through. Because whatever is going on in his relationship, whether it's true or not, the man isn't happy. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and we've been seeing plenty of pictures of him for the past few years where it's clear that the light behind his eyes has been extinguished. So maybe that's what's gonna happen with Harry. Maybe he's gonna have some time away from her in Africa, which he loves very much, and it's funny because she hasn't been there since their 3rd date, so I'm guessing she wasn't a big fan. But that might be what it takes for him to wake up and, as Fran Drescher says, smell the coffee. Speaking of coffee, I think it's time for me to get one of my own. See you later. Have a good weekend.